The vote had been unanimous for the first time in 7,000 years. Every member of the Vorith collective raised their forearms in agreement. Every mind within the Cillian accord hummed with unified purpose. Every circuit in the Drune Empire processed the same logical conclusion. The galaxy belonged to them, and it would stay that way forever. Havrin watched the holographic display flicker with the signatures of all three civilizations. His gray skin reflected the blue light as he turned to address the assembly at Apex Point. The neutral station floated between the three great territories, a monument to their eternal agreement. No war between them, no challenges to their authority, just pure, unchallenged dominance over every world that dared to develop space travel. "The outer rim signals continue," he said, his deep voice carrying across the chamber. "Primitive electromagnetic noise from the third spiral arm. Nothing more." Nimra's form shimmered as the Cillian collective spoke through her. "Our minds have touched the edges of that sector. We sense nothing but silence. Empty worlds and dead rocks." Archon Bolus stood motionless, his mechanical body whirring softly. He had lived for 3,000 years, his consciousness transferred from one shell to another as technology improved. "I have calculated the probability of a threat emerging from that region. 0.003%. Negligible." The junior officer who had requested this emergency session shifted nervously. His name was Torvin, and he had only served for 2 centuries. Young by Vorith standards. Inexperienced, but something in his voice made Havrin pause. 3 scout ships, Torvin said quietly. All disappeared within the same solar system. Their last transmissions showed nothing unusual, then silence. "Equipment failure," Bolus stated. "The scout vessels were constructed 400 years ago. Outdated models. All 3 at once." Torvin pressed. Nimra's collective mind rippled with irritation. "You question our judgment?" Havrin raised one hand to silence the growing tension. "Send a survey vessel. A modern one. We will confirm there is nothing in that sector worth our attention, and then we will expand our mining operations into the region." The other 2 powers agreed. It was a simple matter, a formality. In 40,000 years of Drune history, in 12,000 years since the Vorith reached the stars, in 8,000 years since the Cillian evolved their collective consciousness, no single species had ever challenged their supremacy. New civilizations either submitted or died. That was the natural order. Apex Point's crystal walls hummed with power as the meeting adjourned. Havrin walked through the corridors alone, his footsteps echoing. He thought about the scouts. 3 ships, 3 different crews, all experienced, all vanished in the same system. Equipment failure. That had to be at point 2 weeks later. The Drune Survey Vessel Optimization Vector dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unremarkable yellow star system. Captain Verne had served for 800 years. He had surveyed 2,000 solar systems. He expected nothing different from this one. His sensors immediately screamed warnings, organized traffic patterns, artificial satellites, energy signatures from multiple planets, a civilization that had spread beyond their homeworld. Verne's mechanical face remained expressionless, but his processors raced. This was impossible. Their scans had shown nothing. The Cillian telepaths had sensed nothing. How can an entire spacefaring civilization exist without them knowing? He opened a communication channel, broadcasting the standard message in the mathematical language all species eventually developed. "This sector falls under Drune jurisdiction. Identify yourselves and prepare for integration into our economic structure." The response came in crude electromagnetic waves, translated by his ship's computer. "This is UNSC Defiant. Welcome to the Sol System. We're interested in establishing peaceful relations and cultural exchange. Would you like to meet in person?" Verne processed the words. Cultural exchange. As if they were equals. As if the Drune needed anything from them. He followed the protocol established 40,000 years ago. Show strength. Demonstrate superiority. Break their spirit before negotiations begin. His weapons powered up. gravity cannons that could shred a planet's crust, plasma batteries that burned at star core temperatures, enough firepower to reduce their primitive vessels to atoms. The targeting computer locked onto the human ship. Vern fired. The human vessel's shields flared bright blue. They held. Vern's processors stuttered. His weapons were designed to overwhelm any defense. These humans had shielding that matched Vorith technology. How? That was a mistake, the human voice said calmly. The Defiant didn't run. It didn't call for help. It attacked. Vern had fought in 6 wars of subjugation. He had crushed rebellions on 20 worlds. He knew every combat maneuver developed by every species his civilization had encountered. But these humans fought like nothing he had ever seen. Their fighters moved in patterns his computer called impossible. They used gravity wells to slingshot around his ship. They fired from angles that violated basic tactical doctrine. Their weapons were inefficient, wasteful, and somehow devastatingly effective. One small human craft accelerated directly at his bridge. The pilot had to be insane. Vern calculated the trajectory. The fighter would slam into his shields and vaporize. Instead, at the last microsecond, it rolled and fired a missile straight down his ship's exhaust port. The explosion tore through 3 decks. Warning alarms shrieked. Vern felt something he hadn't experienced in centuries. Fear. "This is Captain David Warner of the UNSC Defiant," the human voice said. "You came to our home. You fired first. You made the choice. Now leave, or we will show you what happens when you threaten Earth." Vern engaged emergency faster-than-light engines. His damaged ship lurched out of the system, trailing debris and radiation. As the stars streaked past his viewports, he began composing his report. The Great Three had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They had crushed every challenger. They had never met resistance they couldn't overcome. That was about to change in the Sol system. Aboard the Defiant, David Warner watched the alien vessel flee. His crew cheered. His hand shook slightly as he gripped the command console. They had won this battle, but he knew with absolute certainty that this was only the beginning. Ambassador Ruth Okafor appeared on his communication screen from Earth. Her dark eyes were serious. "They'll come back." "I know," Warner said. "With more ships." "I know. The whole galaxy might come for us." Warner looked at the blue planet turning slowly in the view screen. 7 billion humans living peaceful lives. He thought about his daughter studying engineering at university, his wife teaching literature to children who dreamed of the stars. Everything they loved, everything they had built. "Then we'll be ready," he said. The transmission ended. Warner turned to his crew. "Set course for Earth. The UN Security Council needs to hear what happened here. All of humanity needs to know." Pilot Amy Briggs grinned from her station. "Think they'll believe us?" "They'd better," Warner said. "Because ready or not, we just announced to the galaxy that humanity will not kneel." The Defiant turned toward home, its hull scorched but intact. Behind it, 3 destroyed alien fighters drifted in the void. The first casualties of a war that would reshape everything the galaxy thought it knew about power, freedom, and the indomitable will of a species that refused to surrender. The emergency lights cast red shadows across the council chamber. Havern felt his secondary hearts racing as the holographic footage played for the 5th time. The Droon survey vessel, one of their most advanced ships, limping away from primitive human fighters. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Archon Bolas stood perfectly still, but his optical sensors flickered rapidly. Processing. Recalculating. His entire existence was built on logic and predictability. This defied both. "Show me their weapons again," he demanded. The hologram zoomed in on a human fighter. Its design was crude, inefficient, wasting energy on unnecessary maneuvering thrusters. But the way it moved, the impossible angles, the sheer audacity of charging directly at a ship 50 times its size, that Nimra's collective consciousness rippled through the chamber. "We attempted deep telepathic penetration of their homeworld. We expected to sense their military command, their leadership, their strategic planning." Her form flickered. "Instead, we found chaos. Billions of individual minds, each thinking differently. No central consciousness. No unified purpose. Just noise. Noise can be silenced, Havrin said, though his voice carried less certainty than before. Bolus turned his mechanical body to face them. I have processed every variable. These humans developed space travel only 2 centuries ago. 2 centuries. The drone required 10,000 years to achieve stable, faster-than-light travel. The mathematics alone should have taken the millennia. Yet they have it, Nimrus said. Impossible implies it cannot happen, Bolus replied. This happened. Therefore our understanding is flawed. The silence that followed felt heavy. For the first time in recorded history, the Great Three faced something they couldn't immediately comprehend. Havrin made his decision. We sent a task force. 150 ships. 50 from each civilization. We seal their system and offer final terms. Submission or extinction. Agreed. Bolus said that Nimra's form pulsed with approval. Agreed. 3 weeks later, humanity learned what fear truly meant. The combined fleet appeared at the edge of the Sol system like a steel curtain. Ships that could crack planets. Weapons that could boil oceans. The might of 3 ancient civilizations focused on one young species that had dared to say no. David Warner stood on the bridge of the Defiant, now the flagship of Earth's defense fleet. Around him, 30 human vessels prepared for battle. 30 against 150. The math was brutal. They're broadcasting, his communications officer said. Havrin's forearm form appeared on the view screen. People of Earth, this is your final opportunity. Unconditional surrender. Immediate disarmament. Integration into our territories as a client species. You will have limited autonomy under our guidance. This is more than most receive. Refuse, and we will reduce your worlds to ash. Warner looked at the faces of his crew. Young men and women who had joined the Navy to explore, not to fight. He thought about his daughter, currently evacuating with 3 billion others to underground shelters on Mars. His wife was helping coordinate the civilian defense networks. Respond, he ordered. The communication channel opened. Warner spoke clearly, knowing every human on every planet was listening. You came to our home. You fired first. You threatened our families. Now you offer us slavery or death. He paused. Here's our answer. Come and take it. The alien fleet surged forward. Gravity weapons tore at space itself. Plasma batteries lit the void with artificial suns. The human fleet scattered like seeds in wind, each ship moving independently. No formation, no predictable pattern. Havrin watched in growing confusion as his tactical computers failed to project their movements. The humans fought like they were insane. One ship accelerated directly into a gravity well that should have crushed it, then used the intense forces to slingshot around and strike from behind. Another broadcast false signals, making his fleet waste ammunition on phantom targets. Amy Briggs led her fighter wing through the alien formations like she was dancing. Her squadron didn't have the firepower to damage capital ships directly, so they targeted sensors, communication arrays, weapon systems. Death by 1,000 cuts. On Mars, Peter Lynn and 5,000 other civilians watched the battle through telescopes and satellite feeds. When the call went out for anything that could fight, Peter looked at the massive mining equipment around him. Drills designed to cut through solid rock. Industrial lasers meant for precision work. Transport vehicles with engines powerful enough to escape Mars's gravity. We can weaponize these, he said to his supervisor. They're mining tools, she replied. Everything's a weapon if you're desperate enough. The Cillian Accord launched their telepathic assault. 100 linked minds focused on Earth tried to induce mass panic to break the human will to fight. Instead, they crashed against something they had never encountered before. Human minds weren't quiet like other species. Humans dramat. Humans imaginat. Humans could hold contradictory thoughts simultaneously. The telepaths recoiled in pain as they experienced 7 billion individual voices all screaming the same thing in different ways. Defiance, rage, absolute refusal to kneel. Their minds are broken, Nimra gasped, her collective fracturing slightly. They believe they can win. They actually believe it. Bolus processed the battle data. 37 alien ships damaged. 12 human vessels destroyed. The humans should be breaking, should be surrendering. But they kept coming that a Droon dreadnought took fire from 3 directions simultaneously. One missile struck its shield generator. Another hit its main reactor. The third was piloted by a human who should have ejected, but didn't, ramming their fighter directly into the exposed reactor core. The dreadnought exploded in a bloom of white fire. Havarin felt his certainty crumbling. His people had ruled for 12,000 years. They had never lost a major engagement. But these humans fought with something his tactical computers couldn't quantify. They fought like every battle was their last. Like they had nothing to lose and everything to protect. "Pull back," he ordered. "Havarin, we outnumber them," Bolus protested. "Pull back," Havarin repeated. "This is not a victory. We are losing ships we cannot quickly replace. They are bleeding but not breaking. We need to reconsider our strategy." The fleet withdrew. Not defeated, but not victorious. The Great Three had come to crush a rebellion and found something they didn't expect. On Earth, in the command bunker, Ruth Okafor watched the alien fleet retreat. The celebrations were muted. They had survived, but the cost was terrible. 12 ships lost. 8,000 people dead. Cities damaged. Infrastructure burning. "They'll come back," she said quietly. "I know," replied General Samuel Wright. "But now they know we bleed them. They know we cost them. That changes the equation. We can't win a long war." "We don't have to win," Wright said. "We just have to make them realize that conquering us costs more than it's worth." Across the galaxy, on worlds that had submitted to the Great Three centuries ago, people watched recordings of the battle. Humans, outnumbered 5-1, had fought the great powers to a standstill. Something impossible had happened. And once you prove one impossible thing can happen, people start believing in others. 6 months passed like years. The Great Three fortified their borders while humanity rebuilt and prepared. But something unexpected happened during those months. Something that would change everything. The recordings spread. Despite the Great Three's attempts to suppress them, footage of human fighters dodging gravity weapons leaked across the galactic networks. Videos of that small species standing against an empire reached worlds that had surrendered generations ago, that on the industrial planet called Bryn 7, workers from the conquered Helix species stopped their assembly lines. They had built Droon warships for 400 years without question. Now, they asked a simple question nobody had dared voice before. Why? The Droon overseer, a mechanical being named Corton, didn't understand at first. "You work because it is your function. Your species surrendered. You serve the Empire. But what if we didn't?" a young Helix worker asked. "The humans didn't surrender. They fought, and the Empire retreated." Corton's logic processor struggled. The humans will be destroyed eventually. Resistance is mathematically futile. Then, why haven't they been destroyed yet? The Overseer had no answer. David Warner stood in his cabin aboard the Defiant, reading reports from Earth's Intelligence Division. The documents made him feel something between hope and dread. Rebellion was spreading through the Great Three's territory. Small at first. Work slowdowns. Protests. Then sabotage. Then open revolt. "We started something," he said to Ruth Okafor, who sat across from him via secure video link. She looked tired. The last 6 months had aged her. "The question is whether we can finish it. The Security Council wants me to lead an offensive," Warner said. "They want us to attack Vorith territory, support the rebellions." "And what do you want?" Warner was quiet for a moment. "I want my daughter to live in a galaxy where she doesn't have to fight." "But that's not an option anymore, is it?" The decision was made. 3 human ships would slip through the Vorith border and reach Bryn 7. Not to conquer, not to destroy, but to prove that the Great Three could be defeated. Amy Briggs piloted the lead ship through the Vorith sensor networks. She had gotten very good at hiding in the last 6 months. Very good at finding the gaps in ancient security systems that hadn't been updated in centuries. "We're through," she reported, heading for Bryn 7. The planet came into view, gray and industrial, covered in factories that produced warships for the drone. Warner opened a communication channel, broadcasting on all frequencies. People of Bryn 7, this is Captain David Warner of Earth. We're not here to invade. We're here to show you something. His ship projected the full recording of the battle at Seoul. 6 hours of footage showing humans bleeding and dying and fighting against impossible odds. Showing the Great Three's fleet retreating. Showing that resistance was possible. The factories went silent. Millions of Helix workers stopped and watched. They had been told resistance meant death. They had been told the Great Three were invincible. But here was proof that both were lies. Corton tried to shut down the broadcast, but the workers had already seen it. "Return to your stations," he ordered. "This is enemy propaganda. The humans will be destroyed." An old Helix worker, one who had labored for 200 years, stepped forward. "Then why are you afraid of us seeing this?" The revolt began with that simple question. Workers seized the factories. They disabled the Druin oversight computers. They sent out their own broadcasts across the Druin Empire. If humans could fight, so could they. Haverin received the reports in his command center. 14 factory worlds in open rebellion. Production of military vessels had stopped. The Druin were panicking, sending ships to restore order. The Cillian telepaths were overwhelmed, trying to suppress the spreading dissent. "This is your fault," Bolus accused. "You argued for restraint, for negotiation. If we had destroyed the humans immediately, this would not be happening." Haverin's forearms trembled slightly. Not with fear, but with something he had never felt before. Doubt about everything he believed. "We created this, not the humans. We built an empire on fear and force. They simply showed everyone that fear can be overcome." Philosophical weakness, Bolus spat. "The humans are a disease. They must be exterminated." "Then exterminate them," Haverin challenged. "Send your fleets. Watch them bleed you dry while your empire crumbles from within." The Cillian collective tried to intervene telepathically, but something had changed. Nimra felt it. The unified purpose that had held their collective together for 8,000 years was fragmenting. Individual Cillians were beginning to think forbidden thoughts. What if being part of the collective wasn't mandatory? What if they could choose? A young Cillian named Crine separated herself from the collective mind. The pain was immense, like tearing away part of her soul. But she reached out to the humans with a single thought. "Help us." Ruth Okafor received the telepathic message while coordinating Earth's defense networks. At first, she thought she was losing her mind. Then she understood. Even among the enemy, there were those who wanted freedom. She arranged a secret meeting. Crine arrived aboard a human vessel, her form flickering with instability. "I have never been alone in my mind before," she said, her voice filled with wonder and terror. "It is terrifying and beautiful. We can offer you asylum," Okafor said. "I don't want asylum. I want my people to have what you have. Choice. The ability to think our own thoughts without the collective drowning us out. We're already fighting 2 civilizations," Okafor warned. "If we help you, we'll be fighting 3. Crine's eyes held determination. "You're already fighting 3. But if you help us, you'll have allies inside the enemy. There are millions like me. Billions perhaps. We just needed someone to show us it was possible." The war was changing. It wasn't human against alien anymore. It was freedom against control. Individual will against forced unity. The Great Three had ruled through strength, but they had never faced an enemy that turned their subjects into rebels. On Bryn 7, the Helix workers fought Druin security forces with improvised weapons. They lost hundreds, but they held the factories. And with each day they held, more worlds joined the rebellion. Haverin made his decision. He sent a secret message to Warner. "Meet me. Alone. We need to talk." Warner knew it could be a trap, but he agreed. They met on a neutral moon, just the 2 of them. Haverin's 4 arms were empty of weapons. Warner carried only a sidearm. "I have commanded fleets for 6 centuries, Haverin said. "I have conquered 40 worlds. I believe we brought order to chaos. But you show me something I had forgotten. We brought tyranny, and tyranny always falls eventually. Are you surrendering?" Warner asked. "I am asking for your help, to free my people from the empire we built, to create something new." Warner extended his hand. Then let's start with the truth. This galaxy has room for everyone. We just need to stop trying to control each other. Havrin looked at the human hand for a long moment, then reached out with one of his own. The grip was awkward, their physiologies too different. But the meaning was clear. The great three were fracturing, and from the cracks, something better might emerge. The Druin Empire refused to fracture quietly. Archon Bolus gathered his loyalists, the mechanized beings who believed in perfection through control. They would not negotiate. They would not compromise. They would burn the galaxy clean before accepting defeat. Point 30 Druin battleships emerged from faster-than-light travel above Earth. No warning, no demands, just weapons firing at maximum capacity. The orbital defenses, rebuilt after the last battle, flared and died within minutes. Missiles streaked toward population centers. Peter Lynn watched from Mars as Earth's sky turned red with explosions. His sister lived in Beijing, his parents in Chicago. The communication networks went silent one by one. He felt rage unlike anything he had known before. "Get me in a ship," he told anyone who would listen. "Give me anything that flies." Amy Briggs was already in the air, her fighter wing racing to intercept the Druin bombardment. But they were too few, too slow. She watched helplessly as kinetic missiles fell towards cities that couldn't evacuate fast enough. Then the Vorth fleet arrived. Havrin's ships, marked now with new insignia. Not the symbol of the collective, but something simpler. A circle split in 4 parts. Unity through diversity, not domination. His gravity weapons caught the Druin missiles mid-flight, crushing them to dust. This is Havrin of the Vorth Commonwealth. Earth is under our protection. Bolus, you are attacking civilians. This is not warfare. This is genocide. Bolus's response came cold and mechanical. They're a virus. The galaxy must be purged. You are a traitor, Havrin. You will be destroyed along with them. The battle above Earth became a 3-way fight. Humans and reformed Vorth against Druin loyalists. The skies burned. Debris rained down. But the missiles stopped falling. David Warner coordinated the defense from the Defiance Bridge. His ship had been damaged in the initial assault, engines stuttering, weapons systems overheating. But he kept fighting because there was no other choice. "Captain, we have incoming from the lunar base," his communications officer shouted. "Civilian transports are arming themselves. They're joining the fight." Warner looked at his tactical display. Mining ships, cargohodes, even a tourist vessel designed for Earth-Moon trips. All of them flying into a battle they had no training for. All of them armed with whatever weapons desperate people could jury-rig. "Tell them to stay back," Warner ordered. "They're not listening, sir. They're saying if Earth burns, they burn with it." Peter Lynn piloted a mining ship he had worked on for 3 years. He knew every bolt, every circuit. The Druin had killed his family. He didn't have fancy weapons or military training, but he had mining lasers designed to cut through asteroid rock. And right now, Druin armor would do just fine that he targeted a Druin frigate, the beam cutting through its hull plating. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't efficient, but it worked. The frigate listed atmosphere venting and retreated. Kryne and her fellow freed Cillians joined the battle in their own way. They couldn't fight physically, but they could touch minds. They reached out to the Druin crews, showing them what they were doing, making them see the faces of the people they were killing, breaking through the logical coldness that let them justify genocide. Some Druin ships stopped firing, their crews overwhelmed by the weight of conscience they had suppressed for thousands of years. Others pushed harder, trying to block out the telepathic assault with pure mechanical determination. The battle lasted for 18 hours. When it finally ended, 30 Druin ships lay destroyed or captured. Earth was scarred but alive. The casualty count was devastating. 2 million dead, cities damaged. But humanity survived. Havrin's flagship landed in what remained of Geneva. He walked out to meet Ruth Okafor, who stood in a city half ruined by bombardment. Behind her, human soldiers pointed weapons at him, uncertain if he was friend or enemy. "We lost 12 ships defending your world," Havrin said quietly. 300,000 of my people died today. They died believing that your cause is worth dying for. Okafor's eyes were red from grief and sleepless nights. Why? We're just one species, one planet, because you showed us something we forgot. That every individual life matters. That freedom is worth fighting for. That empires built on subjugation will always fall. Havrin knelt, all four arms spread in a gesture of respect. My people want to join your fight, not as conquerors, as allies. The news spread across the galaxy faster than light. The Vorith had fully turned against the old order. The Cillians were fracturing, with more choosing individual consciousness every day. Only the Drune remained fully committed to the Empire, and even among them, doubt was growing on the factory world Brand 7. The Helix people held their ground against Drune forces. They fought with stolen weapons and desperate courage. When human reinforcements arrived, led by Amy Briggs and a mixed fleet of humans and Vorith, the Helix workers cried. Not because they were saved, but because they had proven they could save themselves. You didn't need us, Briggs told them. You had already won. We just helped finish it. The old Helix worker who had started the revolt approached her. The humans taught us that resistance is possible, but we taught ourselves that it is necessary. Thank you for that gift. The Druin Empire contracted, pulling back to their core worlds. Bolus knew he was losing. Every day, more species rebelled. Every day, his empire shrank. But he refused to surrender. Refused to accept that his perfect logical order could be wronged. He prepared a final weapon. A device that could sterilize planets, leaving them clean and empty. If he couldn't rule the galaxy, he would purge it of chaos. He would reduce everything to silence and order. Warner received intelligence about the weapon from a defecting drone engineer. It's on their capital world, heavily defended. If they activate it, they'll start with Earth. Then every rebel world. Then every planet that refused to submit. How long do we have? Okafor asked. 3 weeks. Maybe less. She looked at the council of species that had formed in the last months. Humans, Vorith, Helix, Free Cillians, and a dozen others. Former enemies. Current allies. All united by the simple desire to live free. Then we end this, she said. We take the fight to their capital. We stop that weapon. And we make it clear to anyone watching that tyranny has no place in this galaxy anymore. The fleet assembled. 50 different species contributing ships. The Great Three had ruled through division, keeping subject species separate and conquered. Now those species were united, and they were done kneeling. The Drune capital world of Prime, one had never been attacked in 40,000 years. It existed in absolute certainty of its own invincibility. Orbital defense platforms that could shred entire fleets. Weapon systems that had been refined to mathematical perfection. And at its heart, in the deepest vault, the sterilization device that Bolus prepared to activate. The rebel fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the system's edge. 200 ships representing 30 species. Humans, Vorith, Helix, freed Cillians, and dozens of others who had tasted freedom and refused to give it back. They all knew this might be a one-way trip. They came anyway. David Warner stood on the Defiance Bridge for what he knew might be the last time. His ship was old now, scarred by a dozen battles. Like him, like all of them, he opened a channel to the entire fleet. We didn't start this war. We just wanted to explore, to learn, to reach out to the stars and find friends. He paused. Instead, we found an empire that demanded we kneel. We said no. That simple word changed everything. Today, we end what that word started. Not with hatred, not with revenge, but with the simple truth that every being deserves to choose their own path. The fleet advanced. The Drune defenses opened fire. Space lit up with weapons discharges that could vaporize moons. The first wave of rebel ships died in flames. The second wave pushed through. The third wave broke the outer defensive line. Amy Briggs led a strike team of small craft toward the planet's surface. Her mission was simple and suicidal. Get through the defenses. Reach the vault. Stop the weapon. Her squadron was 30 ships. Only 5 made it through the atmosphere. This is just like training, she told her remaining pilots, lying through her teeth. Except the targets shoot back harder, and we probably won't survive. Standard Tuesday. One pilot laughed nervously. Another prayed in a language Amy didn't recognize. They dove toward the coordinates, anti-aircraft fire turning the sky into a wall of death on Prime 1's surface. Bolus watched the battle from his command center. His mechanical mind processed millions of variables per second. The rebels would lose. They had to lose. Mathematics demanded it. But a small subroutine in his consciousness whispered a question he had never considered before. What if mathematics wasn't enough? Activate the weapon, he ordered. His subordinates hesitated. To sterilize Earth would kill billions. To sterilize every rebel world would be genocide on a galactic scale. Even for loyal Drune, the order felt wrong. I said activate it. Bolus repeated that a junior technician, a young Drune who had only lived for 50 years, spoke quietly. No. Bolus turned his optical sensors toward the technician. Explain your malfunction. I'm not malfunctioning. I am choosing. The humans taught me that's possible. Even for us. The technician's hands moved across the console, not activating the weapon, but locking it down. We've been following orders for 40,000 years. Maybe it's time we asked if those orders are right. Bolus reached for the manual override, but more technicians blocked his path. Not attacking, just standing between him and the controls. Choosing. Amy Briggs crashed through the command center's roof in her damaged fighter. The ship was dying, engines on fire, but she aimed it true. It slammed into the vault entrance, blowing the doors open. She ejected seconds before impact, her flight suit's emergency systems barely saving her life. She hit the ground hard, bones breaking, but she forced herself to stand. Through the smoke and debris, she saw the weapon. And she saw Bolus standing alone, his own people refusing to follow him anymore. Interesting, Bolus said, his voice oddly calm. For 40,000 years, I have sought perfection, efficiency, order, but I never calculated for this variable. Choice. It is inefficient. It is chaotic, yet it defeated me. It's not about efficiency, Amy said, raising her weapon despite her shattered arm. It's about being alive, really alive, making mistakes, learning, growing. Your perfection was just another word for stagnation. Bolus looked at the weapon, then at his subordinates who had betrayed him. Not out of hatred, but out of conscience. I've been processing for 3,000 years. I have never made an error in calculation. Until now, I calculated that obedience could be enforced forever. I was wrong. He deactivated the weapon permanently, destroying its core systems. I do not ask for mercy. I ask only that you remember. Empires fall. Ideas endure. Perhaps your idea is stronger than mine. The battle ended not with a massive explosion, but with a whimper. The Drune forces surrendered. Their capital fell. And across the galaxy, the last loyal systems looked at what had happened and made their own choices. Most chose peace. 6 months later, representatives from every free species gathered on Earth. Not to establish a new empire, but to create something that had never existed before. A council of equals. Ruth Okafor, now elderly and tired, addressed the assembly in the rebuilt Geneva Hall. We could have become what we destroyed. We could have taken control, established our own empire, ruled through strength. Instead, we offer something simpler. Cooperation, mutual respect, the right of every species to govern themselves. Avrin stood beside her, his 4 arms folded in respect. The Vorith Commonwealth agrees. We will share our technology, our resources, but we will never again demand submission. Krine spoke for the freed Cillians, her individual voice still shaky but growing stronger. We have learned to hear our own thoughts. We will teach others who wish to learn. But we will never force the collective on anyone again. Even a Drune representative attended. Not Bolus, who had chosen exile rather than trial, but a younger one who had helped disable the weapon. We offer our knowledge, our technology. In exchange, teach us what we forgot, how to value individual life over perfect systems. The Galactic Cooperation Council was born that day. Not perfect, not without conflicts, but free. Every member species had one vote. Every individual had rights. The old empires were gone, replaced by voluntary cooperation. David Warner retired from military service. He returned to teaching, writing the history of the war for students who would grow up in a free galaxy. His daughter, now an engineer, helped design ships that would explore beyond known space. Not to conquer, but to discover. Peter Lynn rebuilt his life on Mars. He never forgot his family, lost in the drone bombardment. But he channeled his grief into construction, helping rebuild Earth and the other damaged worlds. He worked alongside Vorith, Helix, and Droon, former enemies now colleagues. Amy Briggs, her body broken from too many battles, became a flight instructor. She taught pilots from 20 species, sharing her unorthodox tactics. Her most important lesson was simple. Rules are guidelines. Creativity wins wars. Freedom makes it worth winning. 20 years after the fall of the Great Three, a young Helix student named Vera stood in a museum of liberation on Earth. She had been born after the war, growing up in a galaxy she barely recognized from the history recordings. Her species was free. Her people chose their own leaders. It seemed natural to her, inevitable even. But the museum reminded her it hadn't always been that way. She stopped in front of a damaged fighter craft, scorched and barely holding together. The placard read, Amy Briggs's final flight, crashed through the Droon Command Center roof to stop the sterilization weapon. An elderly human woman sat on a bench nearby, watching visitors study the exhibits. Vera didn't recognize her at first. The woman's body was mechanical now, kept alive by the same technology the Droon had perfected. But her eyes were human, warm, alive. Did it hurt? Vera asked suddenly. Amy Briggs smiled. Every second. But pain means you're alive. The Droon forgot that. They optimized away all their discomfort and ended up optimizing away their humanity. Well, their equivalent of it anyway. Were you scared? Terrified? But being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Amy gestured at the museum around them. All of this, everything we built, started because people were scared and did it anyway. Vera looked at the exhibits. The Defiant's original nameplate. Ruth Okafor's worn briefcase, still containing the notes from the first Galactic Council meeting. A piece of stone from the Vorith homeworld inscribed with Havren's declaration of independence from the collective. Krine's telepathic focusing crystal, the tool she used to separate from the Cillian hive mind. My teacher says humans save the galaxy, Vera said. Amy laughed, the sound turning into a cough. Your teacher is wrong. Humans started something, but everyone saved themselves. The Vorith chose to rebel. The Cillians chose individual consciousness. Your people chose to fight for their freedom. We just showed everyone it was possible. She stood slowly, her mechanical legs whirring. Come on, I want to show you something they don't put in the official exhibits. They walked through quiet corridors to a smaller room. Inside were less dramatic artifacts. A child's drawing from a Vorith school, showing humans and Vorith playing together. A letter from a Droon engineer thanking a human scientist for teaching him to value mistakes as learning opportunities. Thousands of small moments of connection. This is what actually changed things, Amy said. Not the battles, not the grand speeches, just people from different species learning to see each other as people. That's the real revolution. Far from Earth, on the Droon homeworld, Bolus worked in a small repair shop. The former Archon, who had commanded fleets and threatened to sterilize worlds, now fixed broken equipment for anyone who asked. He had chosen exile, but the galaxy had been surprisingly forgiving that a human customer brought in a damaged communication device. Bolus examined it with his enhanced sensors. The power coupling is misaligned. Inefficient design. I can optimize it. The human smiled. Actually, it works better a little imperfect. Gives it character. Bolus paused, his processors humming. 20 years ago, that statement would have been incomprehensible. Now he understood. Perfection was a cage. Imperfection allowed growth. I will repair it to your specifications, he said, even if they are suboptimal. See, you're learning humor. That's progress. After the customer left, Bolus allowed himself a moment of reflection. He had spent 3,000 years pursuing perfect order. It had taken him to the edge of genocide. Now he spent his days fixing broken things and learning to appreciate the beauty in chaos. It was illogical. It was inefficient. It was better. On the reformed Cillian homeworld, Crine taught meditation to young Cillians learning to manage individual consciousness. The transition from collective to individual had been traumatic for many. Some days she still felt the phantom pull of the hive mind, calling her back to the comfort of unified thought. It gets easier, she told her students. Your own thoughts become clearer. Your own voice becomes stronger. Yes, you lose the security of the collective, but you gain something more precious. Yourself. A young Cillian raised a tentative mental voice. But what if I make the wrong choice? Then you learn from it. Make a better choice next time. That's the gift the humans gave us. Not just freedom, but the right to fail and try again. Havrin was too old now to travel, his forearms trembling with age. He lived on a quiet Vorth colony world, writing memoirs that nobody would probably read. But he wrote them anyway, recording the truth for future generations. He wrote about his shame at the worlds he had conquered, his pride at the empire he had helped destroy, his hope for the galaxy they were building. On good days, he believed the cost had been worth it. On bad days, he remembered the billions who died in the transition from empire to freedom. A young Vorth journalist came to interview him. You're a hero to my generation. The Vorth who turned against the collective, who chose humanity's side. I chose freedom's side, Havrin corrected gently. Humanity just reminded us what that meant. And I'm not a hero. I'm someone who realized his mistakes and tried to fix them. That should be normal, not heroic. David Warner never finished his history book. He died peacefully at 87, surrounded by his family and friends from a dozen species. His daughter completed it for him, adding a final chapter he had outlined but never written. It was titled What Comes Next, and it was mostly blank pages. At the top, he had written a single sentence. That's for you to decide. Choose well. The Galactic Cooperation Council met annually now on rotating worlds. The meetings were chaotic, inefficient, loud with dozens of species arguing passionately about everything. Ruth Okafor, in her final years, attended one last session. She sat in her wheelchair, watched the controlled chaos, and smiled. This is what we fought for, she told her aide. Not peace, not perfection, just the right to argue, to disagree, to find our own way forward together. Is it working? The aide asked. Ask me in 1,000 years. But yes, I think so. She died 3 weeks later. Her funeral was attended by representatives from every member species. They didn't always agree on how to honor her. That would have made her happy. Vera left the museum as evening fell on Earth. She looked up at the stars, no longer divided into territories of ancient empires. Just stars, possibilities, futures waiting to be written. She thought about the humans who had changed everything. The Vorth who had chosen conscience over obedience. The Cillians who had embraced individual thought. The Drun who had learned that perfection wasn't worth the cost. Her own people, the Helix, who had found courage they didn't know they possessed. All of them scared. All of them flawed. All of them free. The Great Three had believed they ruled the galaxy. They had been wrong. Nobody ruled it now. Everyone shared it. And that simple change, that revolutionary idea that every being deserved self-determination, had transformed everything. Vera decided she would become a historian like Warner. Not to record what happened, but to remind future generations of what it cost. Freedom wasn't free. It was paid for in blood, courage, and the willingness to stand up and say no to tyranny. She walked home through streets filled with a dozen species, all living together in imperfect harmony. Arguments drifted from restaurants. Laughter echoed from playgrounds where human and alien children played together. It wasn't perfect. It was messy, complicated, and sometimes frustrating. It was alive. It was free, and it was worth everything they had sacrificed to achieve it. The stars shone above, no longer divided by invisible borders. Just stars, waiting for the next generation to explore them. Not as conquerors, not as subjects, but as equals, choosing their own path among the infinite possibilities of the galaxy. The Great Three had fallen. Something better had taken their place. And it had all started with one word, spoken by one species who refused to kneel, N-O.